Hello, and welcome to the Heathen's Journey podcast. I'm your host, Siri Vincent Plough, and I'm so glad you're here. This is the show where I explore heathenry through a queer lens. We will be talking about traditional witchcraft, runes, folklore, and so much more. Join us, won't you, as we journey to the ends of the 9 realms and back. Hello there. It has been a while since I was a regular podcaster on the Heathen's Journey podcast. There are a lot of reasons for that, many of which involve me needing to have a day job and time being limited, and I was working on a whole book with queering the runes. But I'm back to podcasting. I really enjoy it, and I want to do more of this. I actually have an interview that I have been working on editing. It's a much belated release because I recorded this with Nicolette back in the summer. It's a podcast episode about Nicolette Miele's book, Runes for the Green Witch, which is very good. And I really, want to get that out there, but I'm recording this. Oh my gosh, you can hear some sirens in the background. That's a mood. That's almost exactly how I feel. Anyway, I am recording this on the Friday after the US election, after Trump was reelected. And oh boy, I can't go straight into a normal interview episode. I can't return, like I had been planning on. I wanted to take some time to sit down and pour out some thoughts for you all. It's a really weird week for me. Queering the Runes came out on Monday, and that feels incredible. This book that I've been working on for 7 years is finally out, and people are responding very, very well to it. And now is a time when I need to be incredibly visible. And I'm really struggling with being visible right now because of all of the shit that's going on. My partner, who I love very, very much and who loves me very, very much, reminded me that, my book is important, and it's perhaps important now more than ever. And that I shouldn't worry so much about that. And that's okay. That it's okay. But I do want to talk about, some practical things and ways that we can prepare ourselves as a community. I want to say right off the bat, I am staying and fighting. I am not leaving. I am based in Minnesota, and I'm based in a really progressive city within Minnesota. So I feel about as safe as I could in the United States right now, considering my partner is trans and I am non-binary and disabled. And so what are some of the ways that we can self-soothe right now in order to shore ourselves up for the resistance? So one of the things that I'm actually avoiding right now is divination. This is, maybe something that has been very helpful for you in this time. This is not a one-size-fits-all comment. For me, I've noticed that when I'm really struggling with being super activated, and I mean activated in terms of like fight or flight response, like really struggling to stay in my body, really struggling to, deal with the flood of emotions that are coming through. If I pull cards or runes at that time, then it's all going to be doom and gloom. It's going to be a reflection of my emotions and turmoil. So that is one thing that I'm not doing right now. Your mileage may vary. Perhaps divination is one of the only things that's keeping you solid right now. And, you're getting a lot of good grounding advice from your divination method of choice. It's really funny. So on Monday, speaking of divination methods of choice, on Monday, my at my Patreon only book launch for Queering the Runes, I'm doing this thing where I'm reading a bit of the introduction for the book at all of my book launches, and then I'm pulling runes and reading an excerpt of that chapter. And the rune that I pulled on Monday was Hagalaz, which, if you've listened to the Hagalaz episode, you know that that is a rune that is all about turmoil. It is incredibly difficult to deal with. It is like, when everything is ruined, what do you do? In crisis moments, what do you do? And I think that this was really prescient because, rereading that section of the book and, kind of engaging with Hagalaz again on Monday was really helpful for me. And now I'm like, oh, I guess we had a really big Hagalaz moment coming the next day. Yeah, I don't know quite where I was going with that. I'm sorry. I'm still definitely processing everything and, dealing with it in my own way. And part of that is talking to you all about it. Some other magical things that we can do to forge our paths is up our protection magic. I have a trans protection bind rune that I keep on my altar. And I bring several of those with me. Actually, it's like a wood burned disc. I bring it with me when I'm going to markets and stuff for lore. And I am more than happy to, send those to people who need them. Bind runes are a really good way of ensuring protection. Sigils, similarly, a very good way of ensuring protection. But also just like the mental fortitude is necessary and a protective act. I think that if we look at meditation as a way of fortifying the mind and helping us to stay calm and not be in that horribly activated state where we are entering reactivity rather than dealing with what is truly in front of us. I think that meditation is a really important thing that we all need to work on right now. And it's totally okay if you can't quiet your mind. So in some ways, that's not the point. I think of meditation as like a way of it's a way of kind of changing my mental pathways. So sometimes, especially when I'm like really activated, that looks like following a guided, perhaps a yoga nidra meditation. And if you don't know, that's a style of meditation that is specifically supposed to draw you into a state that is, deeply relaxing your vagus nerve. And you can find yoga nidra meditations on YouTube, on the Insight app. I really like that app in particular. You can find them for free everywhere. That's a really good use because it really helps me. This is also yoga nidra for sleep is really good if you are having trouble sleeping. Another meditative practice that is perhaps a little bit simpler is just the practice of watching my thoughts float by. So I might be spiraling. I might, have a really hard time quieting my mind, but just getting a little bit of distance, observing the thought as a cloud that may be passing me by, or as a leaf on the river in front of me is a really good way of kind of reminding myself that, even when I'm spiraling, it's completely possible to, even when I'm spiraling, it's possible to see that for what it is. I think of this method of meditation really as a sort of mental strength training. That form of meditation where you're kind of like letting your thoughts pass you by, where you're recognizing your thoughts but not engaging with them, is a very good form of distress tolerance. I think that it's really important that we all practice distress tolerance right now because, like a lot of people are in distress, particularly people who listen to this podcast. And then I want to say that it's really important to remind yourself of the community that you have, whether they are in person with you or online, remembering that we keep us safe, that we are here, in large part to keep one another safe, check in on one another, care for one another is really, really important right now. And when you're thinking about engaging in local activism, there are a lot of different ways that you can do this. For the last, I would say probably, 4 years at least, my primary mode of activism has actually been care work. It has been supporting people and showing up for people and participating in mutual aid when I can. Now that is really difficult because I actually am, surprise, surprise, I'm very low income. Wow. But so mutual aid funds are really hard for me to support, but sometimes I have extra food or sometimes I have, other resources that I can share. And so I encourage you to get involved with these on the ground things. I was talking to a friend earlier this week and they were talking about how it's at the local level when we have local support where we can truly become ungovernable because we can create pockets of resistance that resonate and move outwards. The other thing to remember is that you don't have to be a leader. Sometimes you just need to volunteer. I, for one, am very good at phone banking. So sometimes I volunteer to phone bank because that is, a rare skill, I guess. Well, not rare, like anybody can phone bank, but you know what I mean? Like I have a lot of experience phone banking. And so that is one thing that I can do without it being a huge drain. Like to my personal energy stores. You don't have to be a leader. You don't have to start a whole new organization. I think it's important to plug in where people have already been doing this work for a really long time. The other thing that I want to talk about is emergency preparedness. And this is not to scare anyone. This is just, as somebody who has lived on the margins for a really long time, I think it's very important that we all get prepared to deal with the, the difficulty, the fallout. We get prepared for things like natural disasters. I mean, this hurricane season has been absolutely devastating. Climate change is, really starting to take the reins. And it's important that we build resilient communities on the ground where we are. And that includes becoming more resilient ourselves. So I have a major goal in the next year of creating a good savings net. And, dealing with some debt issues that I have in order to not be putting money toward my debt, essentially. And I would encourage everybody to do the same. I know that this is, as an anti-capitalist and as somebody who has been living on the margins and has a small business, I know that this is really, really, really difficult. Particularly as the gap between the wealthy and those of us living at or below the poverty line gets wider and wider. But this is a time to really take a look at your own resources and make sure that you have capability. And this is another thing too, is like, what are the resources that you have that don't take money? So for example, I really want to participate in a garden next year, which will bring, vegetables home, and potentially even stuff that I can share. I have a good relationship with, several people, and I'm hoping that, that have space for a garden, and I'm hoping that I can contribute, labor to the garden, and then, get a share. And so that is also like a way of, on a very localized level, creating resources that takes a bit of money, but it's ultimately savings in the long run. What else do I want to talk about? I want to talk about learning skills. Being able to patch things, to sew things, to mend things is very important. Some people have the ability to fix technology when it breaks. Some people have the ability to build technological systems that don't depend, like platforms that don't depend on large corporations to run them. I think that, understanding your own skills and seeing even skills that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of as skills for the resistance as skills that you can use for the resistance is really important. I, for one, am planning on returning to my herbal studies in a much more serious way this winter, because I want to have some ability to treat certain symptoms or, other things like that through herbal medicine, particularly because the healthcare sector in the United States is really a behemoth and very scary. And I just think that having an understanding of herbal medication, herbal work, will be really important. It also is a part of my ongoing effort to give back to the land, and have a good relationship with land spirits. All of these things are also very heathen. I want to say, so like giving an offering to the land Vatir as I am gardening, right, is huge. Saying a prayer to Thor when doing some harvesting or gardening is another thing that you can do. There are also a lot of specifically anti-fascist heathen organizations. A really big one that I want to point everyone to is the Fellowship of Fire and Ice, which is an organization that I have taught with recently. And they do incredible work. Ryan Smith, who wrote The Way of Fire and Ice and Spinning Weird, and is the host of the Wayward Wanderer podcast, did an incredible episode with Shane Burley about faith and resistance and anarchy and the election last week. So this is before the election results were out. But it's a really, really good listen, and I highly encourage you to listen to that. And I highly encourage you to get involved with some of these other heathen organizations that are doing some of this critical work. Another really important piece of critical work is Heathen Prison Inreach. If you were interested in this, the Troth internationally has some prison inreach groups. If you're based in Minnesota, hit me up. I know who to connect you with to get you involved in that. And prison inreach is essentially, going into prisons and doing heathen services or work, education, in order to make sure that white supremacists are not doing that in our place. So it's really critical. Prison education is essential. And then the other things too, just getting involved in local movements. I don't know personally, like what my technological, footprint is going to continue to look like. I am, some super basic things. I am, interested in getting a VPN that is not based in the US so that I can access news that may be censored here, or websites that may be censored here. And it's also like a form of tech protection in general to have a VPN. Also, kind of downloading end-to-end encrypted messaging services like Signal is the big one, is really important. I know that a lot of people have been talking about the state as a surveillance state, and it's difficult to live with that and cope with that. But there are ways that we can, resist a bit. And the other thing too is just, spending time with your people, because you need to feel supported in order to have the courage to move forward with your activist work. All of this is related back to the heathen's journey because the political is spiritual. In the political, we are striving for something better. And in the spiritual, we are learning what our values are. We are learning our community values. We are engaging with the metaphysical in such a way that just like the values and ethics that are, necessary to political activist work are also deeply embedded in spirituality. And so my work will never be able to separate the political from the spiritual. I wrote an entire book about queering the runes. In Lessons from the Empress, my first book with Cassandra Snow, like we Trojan horsed a lot of queer theory into that book specifically because we can't separate those things. And so my work will continue to be political. I will continue to bring that into this. I don't have necessarily other strong reactions to share. I think I might bring this kind of thought dump to a bit of a close here. I do love podcasting, and I have I have another podcast up my sleeve that I am currently recording episodes for. It is called Chaos and Cunning. It is about the intersection of chaos magic and cunning folk or folk magic. So I'm really excited about that. And I will continue to upload episodes to the Heathen's Journey as like cross current episodes. So anytime that there's something that is related to heathenry, I will also post it here. And yeah, it's just a behind the scenes thing. I haven't decided when to launch that yet. Because I've been pretty preoccupied with the launch of Queering the Runes, which is out now in the world. So that is kind of one of the biggest things. But I did just want to hop on today, before releasing any further episodes of, the Heathen's Journey podcast, and just talk about, some of the ways that I'm thinking about continuing to manage as an anarchist under the rise of fascism. What are some practical things that I'm doing to fight against fascism in my everyday life? And I also want to remind everybody that care work is important. And some of the most important work in this very moment, like directly after the election, as we're all processing all of this stuff, it's really essential that we are committing and providing care work for one another so that we can figure out together what a good next step is. So yeah, I just wanted to let you all know that I am here for you. I care about all of this stuff. Fuck Trump. And we take care of each other. We keep us safe. So keep on keeping on. I'll probably be back next week with a more heathen related conversation, an interview. All right. There's no good way to end this, so keep fighting. Thank you for listening to the Heathen's Journey podcast. I'm so glad that you could be here. If you are interested in supporting the podcast financially, I would recommend checking out my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Siri Vincent Pluff. And of course, that is linked in the show notes. Until next time, stay weird.